In this episode of the Redstone, we go to McDonald's. In Minecraft. Not really. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Redstone. Today I'm going to show you a little thing that I was playing around with, which is a automatic restaurant in Minecraft with Redstone. So I'm going to show it off here. So as it says, you choose your food, then you go to the pickup area, wait for it to finish cooking, and then it'll spit it out at you. So let's say I want... first I'm just going to clear my inventory. Wow, caps lock. Clear. Just so you can see. Let's say I want a steak. So I'm going to press steak and then go to the pickup area. As it says, when the light is on, it's cooking, and when the light turns off, it's ready for pickup. So it's currently cooking up in a furnace. So just wait for it. Oh, there it is. It's nice and cooked, and now I have myself a steak. But let's say I didn't want a steak. What if I want chicken? So I press chicken. Come back over here. It's cooking again, so the light's back on. And then we just wait for the chicken to cook. And there's our chicken. Believe it or not, this is faster food than a fast food restaurant. Let's say I want pork chop. Lights on, food's cooking. Any second now. There it is. There's our cooked pork chop. And if we want a fish, the Filet-O-Fish O Minecraft. Without the fillet. Or the O. So fish is cooking. I'm not a seafood person in real life, but hey, it's virtual. And there's the fish. So there we go. And just so you know, all of this food does go in raw, gets cooked, and gets spit out cooked. So I'm not actually going to show a tutorial on how to build this in this episode, simply because there's a lot of components, but I will show you the redstone and sort of explain it in an overview, and if there's a lot of demand in the comments for a tutorial, then I will be glad to make a tutorial. I just feel like it's a little, not hard, but it has a lot of pieces, so unless people really want that, I won't be doing it. But I will show you an overview of the redstone behind this. So we have the buttons, and you may notice the buttons are staggered in and out. That's just because I wasn't able to find a one-wide tileable design for a pulse limiter, unless I alternated between two and one was a little longer. So here's a pulse limiter. Actually, 4 pulse limiters, 1 for each menu item. And of course this is tileable, so if I wanted to throw in like mutton or rabbit or something, I could add that here. Technically, I could even throw in like ores and then get gems out if I really wanted, but that wouldn't make sense in a restaurant, so yeah. So each of these rows here is a pulse limiter, which just means when I press that button, even though the button stays on for a long time, this will only stay on for 4 ticks, and then turn off. It shortens the pulse, and the reason for that is because these lead into these redstone torches, which are connected to these hoppers underneath these chests. Now each of these chests has a different raw ingredient, so here we have 5 raw chickens left. Here we've got our beef, which is actually running low from all my testing. Here we've got some pork chops, and here we've got some raw fish. So we have all our ingredients here, and these redstone torches are making sure that these hoppers don't pull the ingredients unless someone's ordered something. And so when you press the button, it goes through this pulse limiter, turns off a torch for whatever item you've selected, and then allows the hoppers to pull. Now the key thing is that if I didn't have these pulse limiters here, the button would stay on too long and it would pull like 2 or 3 items at a time. I think during my testing it pulled like 3. And clearly if somebody's paying for 1 fish and you give them 3, you're just losing money, and that's bad business. So This makes sure that it only stays on long enough for these hoppers to pull one item, but they do have to be long enough to push an item as well, because pulling and pushing happens in the same step. So when I had these repeaters here set to 1 tick, it actually was pulling items, but then not pushing them. So it would wait till the next time you pressed a button to actually push the item, which isn't good. So I had to extend them out to 4 ticks, but now it works fine, as you saw. So all of these hoppers underneath these chests lead into this row of hoppers here, which are constantly on, because no redstone torches. And then they pass the item, the raw food, over into here, which goes down through this hopper and into our furnace. Now, the way furnaces and hoppers interact in Minecraft is kind of interesting. So if you go into a furnace, which I actually can't click here without destroying things, so I'm going to destroy a block over here instead. So if you look at a furnace in Minecraft, it's got this area for fuel, this area for the input of raw ingredients, and then this area is where all of your output is going to be. Now, if you manually do furnace work or smelting or cooking or whatever you're doing with a furnace, normally you'd put your fuel in, and then you'd put your ingredients in, wait for it to finish, and then manually take out your cooked product. But the way hoppers interact with furnaces to make this automatic, which let me just fill this back in. The way hoppers work with furnaces in Minecraft is that any hopper that's pushing into the top will push into the raw ingredients slot. Any hopper pushing in from the side, like this one, will push into the fuel slot, and any hopper that's underneath is going to pull only from the output slot. So if you put a hopper underneath a furnace, you don't have to worry that it's going to pull out your ingredients or fuel, because it's not going to. It'll only pull out when there is a finished cooked product to pull. So those raw ingredients, depending on what you selected, will get pushed into this hopper row, which gets pushed down here into the furnace and into its raw ingredient slot. But a furnace isn't going to cook anything without fuel. Now, as you saw before, there's like 50 coals in there. That's because, so the way this works is when the food is passing through these hoppers and it hits this hopper here right before the furnace, it's going to trigger this comparator. And this right here is a pulse extender. So as the repeaters here go through these blocks, they will slow down the signal, but as it hits each block, it's actually going to power this redstone line. And because the signal gets slowed down here, it actually lengthens the signal itself. And that signal comes into this redstone torch, turning it off and allowing this hopper to pull fuel from our fuel chest, which there's nothing left in, because all the fuel has gotten pushed already. But there was a bunch of coal in here. And that's how the coal ends up in there. So what happens is, if you have enough fuel in here, then every time an ingredient passes through this hopper, it's going to trigger this signal, turn off that torch, turn on that hopper, pull fuel out of the chest, and push it into the furnace. So every time there's an ingredient in here, there will also be fuel. Now you might say, well, but it's pushing more fuel than it needs. It only needs one. But see, here's the key thing about furnaces in Minecraft. They will not use more fuel than they need. So it's not like having the extra fuel in there is just going to burn it away and waste it. It's just going to sit there until there's an ingredient to cook. And that's actually very nice, because it means that I really didn't have to mess around with this fuel pusher. I could have just put a bunch of fuel in there and let it go. However, there's only one slot for fuel in there, and that goes up to 64 for coal. But if I go in this chest, I have all of these slots, each that can fill 64. So I could actually fill this up with more coal than can fit in that furnace, so that it will last a much longer time before needing to be refueled. Because if there's fewer than 64 coal in the furnace, and an item comes through this line, it will automatically push more fuel into the furnace and allow it to keep cooking. So yeah, I could actually make this a double wide chest and have even more space, but I didn't feel the need for that. I mean, how much fuel do you really need? But yeah, so that is the actual cooking part. And now you'll see that it's a little hard to see here because of all of this jumble of circuitry. Oh, there we go. Much easier to see from this angle. You'll see there's a hopper coming from the furnace leading into the dropper. Now, as I said, hoppers below a furnace will only pull from the output, so once something is done cooking, this hopper is going to pick it up and throw it into the dropper. Now, a dropper is not going to automatically spit out anything that's inside of it, so what I have here is an automatic dropper circuit. So a dropper will drop an item if a signal into it goes from off to on. And when I say that, I don't mean if the signal is on, because if the signal stays on, it's only going to drop it the one time and then leave everything else in its inventory. You actually have to switch from off to on. So I could just put this on a clock, but if I put this on a clock, it's going to keep dropping stuff even when its inventory is empty, and it makes this really annoying clicking sound when it drops. So having that all the time would be the most annoying restaurant ever. So instead, I have this auto dropper circuit, which also works for dispensers because they're basically the same thing. The way this works is I have a comparator here, which measures how many things are in this dropper. Right now, there's nothing in the dropper because I didn't cook anything, so this circuit is off. However, if I put something in this dropper, or in this case, if something comes through the furnace into this dropper, it's going to turn this comparator on because there's something inside, which leads into this repeater to boost the signal up to 15, and then that leads into this redstone, which comes into this comparator here. Now this comparator is actually set up as a comparator clock. So basically what happens is, when there's any items in this dropper here, it's going to turn on this comparator clock. And the way comparator clock works, just for quick reference, is this is set to subtraction mode, and it feeds back into itself. So it subtracts its input from itself, except with these two here, the input will actually be lowered by 2 signal strength. So in this case, this repeater boosts up to 15 for the input, so it'll be 15 here, but then by the time it gets back around, it'll be 13, because 15, 14, and 13. So then it's going to subtract 15, which is the input, from 13, and give you 2. Now a signal strength of 2 is only going to reach up to here, which means it'll be off for the rest of the circuit. But once the signal strength is 2, it reaches here, and then suddenly this is 15 minus 2, or actually it's 2 here, so it'll be 1 and 0. So it'll actually be 15 minus 0, which is a full 15 signal strength, which reaches over here and turns this part of the circuit on. So it alternates, it's a clock, and what that means is that as long as there's an item in this dropper, at least one, it will continuously turn the dropper signal on and off, which means it'll keep dropping items out until it's empty. As soon as it's empty, this comparator turns off, this repeater turns off, this clock turns off, and you don't have to hear any clicking. So now you might wonder what all this is about. This is for that indicator light that tells you when something is currently cooking or if there's something ready to be picked up. And so the way this works is we have this circuit here, which, as I said before, just detects when there's something moving into the furnace, and that's what puts the fuel in. But in addition to pushing fuel into the furnace, it also comes around here into this line here. Now these two blocks have redstone torches on them, and they lead into each other, and that forms what's called a latch, or an RS NOR latch, which basically means if I put a signal here, then that signal will stay on, and it will turn this signal off permanently. But then if I put another signal here, this signal will turn on and stay on, and this signal will turn off permanently. So it kind of allows you to toggle between two states with temporary events. So in this case, the temporary event is just an item passing through that hopper and getting pushed into the furnace, which means, hey, there's an item that's being cooked right now. So when that happens, it triggers this latch, which turns on this redstone lamp right there. So as you can see, this line leads into this redstone lamp. So when an item passes into the furnace, it turns this latch on and turns the lamp on, and then the lamp stays on permanently. However, I then have this dropper clock here going out back into the other side of our latch, which turns it off because it toggles this latch to where this side is on and that side is off, and since this is where it's going into the lamp turns off. So basically the way it works then is as an item is passing through the hoppers to get to the furnace, it turns the lamp on, and then as an item gets pushed into the dropper, it turns the latch off and turns the light off. And that's how the indicator light works. So, I believe that's actually everything. I've explained the indicator lamp latch, I've explained the automatic fuel injection, if you want to call it that. I've explained the dropper clock to push out or to spit out items that are finished cooking. I've explained how the furnace works. I've explained how the ingredients get to the furnace. I've explained the selection system. And that's pretty much everything. So, one last really quick overview. The buttons go into pulse limiters, which enable hoppers, which push raw ingredients into a furnace, which triggers this comparator, which pushes coal into the furnace and turns on our indicator light. When our furnace is done, a hopper pushes the cooked items into a dropper, which turns on a dropper clock and turns off our light and spits our cooked product out. And that is how we have a fast food restaurant, fully automatic, faster than real fast food in Minecraft. Again, if you like it, leave a like. If you want to comment on it, leave a comment. If you like these tutorials, this series, or anything on my channel really, feel free to subscribe. And if you want a tutorial for this in a little more depth than I've given here, or maybe a tutorial on one of the components, like what's an RS NOR latch, or what's a comparator clock, or what's a pulse extender, or what's a pulse limiter, or how do furnaces work, or what the hell's a hopper. Whatever you want a tutorial on, comment down below, and I will be glad to provide you with your tutorials. In fact, it can be a tutorial about something that has nothing to do with this particular build. If you want me to show you how to build anything in Redstone, or, you know what, maybe not even Redstone, just any kind of circuitry in Minecraft, or any kind of cool tricks, just let me know in the comments below, and I will work on it. And then it'll be up by next Tuesday. Well, the Tuesday after I get the comment, of course. So until next time, keep redstoning.